All right, let's get into some more Michael Jackson. It is the Bad 25 full documentary. I'm really looking forward to this.
I feel rejuvenated, kind of, because after working on it so long, it's so much work. A lot of people, they're used to just seeing the outcome of work. They never see the side of the work you go through to produce the outcome. And I feel, rejuvenated and happy. It's a jubilation, really, is what it is. It's like a celebration. It's like, we're done.
Yeah. This is so long. So long in the making.
I think people have resolved on the fact that Thriller was the biggest selling record in the world. How are you going to follow up, on something like that? It's almost impossible. Try telling that to Michael Jackson, though.
The Thriller is the blockbuster behemoth in the era of blockbuster artists. I mean, that's the era when you had, Madonna, Springsteen, Whitney Houston. So big stars, big album,
amazing.
MTV era, music videos are in ascendance. So, and it's the signature album of that era.
Thriller sold over 100.
So many big names came from 70s and 80s, so many big names.
Million copies worldwide to date. 35 million in the US, over 70 million outside the US.
Still shocks me,
and that's not even counting singles.
There was a mania around Michael and Thriller for those 3 years that was very difficult to capture again. And you go back to Elvis or Frank Sinatra or the Beatles, even today with Justin Bieber or Lady Gaga, it's a space and time. The window is only open, so far. And Thriller captured that. It was magical.
Yeah, I've seen... I believe I saw this bit, I think. So many blooming awards for this he had.
Thriller broke every record that existed. And it sold more records than any other album in the history of the music industry.
To most of us, he's just wacko jacko. And if some of the press are to be believed...
What does this say?
He's just wacko jacko. And if some of the press...
I don't like that. I don't like that name. Where the heck did that even come from? Really disrespectful. If you watch a few of my other videos, you'll know how I feel about people calling him names. I don't appreciate it much. Wow.
Industry.
To most of us, he's just wacko jacko. And if some of the press are to be believed, he bathes in Perrier water, eats flowers for...
What was that one say?
Press are to be believed. He
this
bathes
one. I
in
want to
Perrier
read
water.
this, right. My Jacko is a real freako. Mum's agony. Richard Ellis in New York. Weirdo pop star Michael Jackson has been branded a freak by his mum. Okay. So Katherine Jackson, 61, admits that her Jacko really is wacko because of his oddball behavior and the series of plastic surgery operations he has had to change his looks. Now, up to this point, I've noticed he's definitely had some work done on his nose, right? That is 1,000,000%. It's like you can definitely tell that he's had some work done on his nose, and it's not. I would say at the moment, it doesn't. It's not a bad look. It isn't bad. Okay. So where this even came from, I don't know. This is just. Can you say that? She really said that about her own son. See, I like his mom. It's his dad. It isn't his mom that I've had a problem with.
Eats flowers for lunch and sleeps in an oxygen tent, often with a chimp, a snake, and an alien in a sort of bizarre love triangle.
All that stuff is trash. And it all comes from the fact that that Michael Jackson doesn't.
Yeah, Frank. I know Frank.
They have nothing else to write about.
What surprises me sometimes, the people that get distracted and myopic about Michael's eccentricities when they listen to his music and watch his performance, that's like somebody saying, hey, there's a cobweb on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
This article is from Playboy magazine.
I like that. I like that. There's a cobweb on the painting on the Sistine Chapel or whatever. You know, that's what it's like with him. You know, when people say something dumb. It's like, okay, yeah, it's just a cobweb, man. You just ignore it. You know what? Yeah.
5 is called Freaks and the American Ideal of Manhood by James Baldwin. So the Michael Jackson cacophony is fascinating in that it is not about Jackson at all. I hope he has the good sense to know it and the good fortune to snatch his life out of the jaws of a carnivorous success. Yeah. He will not swiftly be forgiven for having turned so many tables, for he damn sure grabbed the brass ring. Freaks are called freaks and are treated as they are treated in the main abominably, because they are human beings who cause to echo deep within us our most profound terrors and desires.
People tend to reduce the backlash to Michael Jackson to these eccentricities. But I think that the James Baldwin quote suggests that it was more than that. Michael Jackson became one of the most powerful figures in the entertainment industry, and certainly he was the most powerful African-American to that time. And in addition to that, in 1985, along with John Branca, he acquires the Beatles catalog.
When we announced
this is interesting.
The acquisition of the Beatles catalog, there's almost a feeling that Michael didn't
I heard about this in the comments that he actually brought the entire Beatles, catalog. All right, but I never really went into it too much. I haven't actually seen it or heard it. This is the first time I've actually seen it.
Also to be a savvy businessman. It was a misconception that Michael went behind Paul McCartney's back to bid on the catalog, but that was absolutely not the case.
I remember when he bought the Beatles catalog, he came to me and he said, you know, they want whatever it was at that time, $52 million. It sounds like too much money. He said, I think you're wrong.
A lot of those Beatles songs are considered sacred songs by people. I mean, they really are more than just pop songs they heard on the radio. They meant something in their lives beyond almost any songs they heard. I mean, Sgt. Pepper particularly, right? And for him to take that catalog and use it in the way he's used it, it's going to have some kind of backlash.
After Thriller, Michael had a few extra dollars to invest. And we had an investment committee, and we used to look at all sorts of possible deals for Michael. And he never had interest in buildings, tax shelters, the kinds of things that maybe other people were interested in at the time. One day, Michael came to me and he said, I saw Paul McCartney's song catalog. He showed it to me. Do you think you can help me buy copyrights? And I said, absolutely, Michael. We bought a couple Dion and the Belmont songs, Run Around Sue and The Wanderer.
Wow.
Then we bought the Sly and the Family Stone catalog, which was a major acquisition for Michael.
Geez, so he owned all that, all the copyrights to them.
You know, he's not baby dumpling now. He's grown, he's listened, he's growing up, and there's other kinds of things he wants to say, the stretches, I feel the stretches are there, but they don't seem like they've been conscious stretches, I think they're things that just occurred along the way to say that this is the way I feel like thinking and feel like feeling, at this time now. And one thing we really have tried not to do is to sit down and worry about competing with Thriller, because that's really self-destructive, and it's dishonest.
He would always, would write with a red Sharpie on his mirrors in his rooms, wherever he was. He'd write 100 million albums sold for Bad to remind him when he would stand in front of the mirror, brushing his teeth, brushing his hair, doing himself up, that was his goal.
I remember, seeing on Michael's mirror, he wrote the big note, 100 million albums.
That's insane.
And that was a goal that he set for himself.
That's quite cool.
I remember one time I was in Hong Kong with Michael, and it was in between the records.
Love the hat.
And I said, Mike, there's a lot of pressure. Maybe you should think about why not do an album of cover songs that inspired you? Jackie Wilson, James Brown, just go a little left to center so you don't feel like you have to compete with yourself.
Did he ever do that?
And he looked at me like I was from Mars.
Oh.
Because Michael thrived on that pressure. He thrived on pushing himself and everybody else around him.
If this record doesn't do as well as Thriller and doesn't win a whole bunch of Grammy Awards, he's going to be very unhappy.
He would call during the Thriller and during the bad days. My record's not #1. My record's not #1. What are we going to do? I said, Michael, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to go to sleep. We're going to get up tomorrow. We're going to work on getting you #1.
Michael didn't have limits.
I want number one.
Michael thought Bigger Than Anyone, Off the Wall, was a huge hit. And when he told people after that album, I'm going to follow this up with an album that's going to sell twice as much as Off the Wall, people didn't believe him. And he did it.
Yeah, he done it.
Bad, he said, okay, I'm going to do it again.
Bad has a special distinction. It's the first album in history to generate 5 consecutive #1 pop singles. And that record was only recently tied by Katy Perry with her Teenage Dream album.
Wow.
It started with I Just Can't Stop Loving You in the summer of 1987.
I just can't stop loving you.
Then you had The Way You Make Me Feel.
Man in the Mirror.
And finally, Dirty Diana.
It's a testament to his
Beautiful songs, man.
swag, really.
Well
that
deserving
he
of
even
#1.
made another record after Thriller. It did take him 5 years.
I was 16 years old when the Bad album came out. I remember being highly obsessed with every aspect of that album.
We were just like, what is this gonna be? Because this was a humongous deal.
I guess in some way or another, my education of the industry and those inside it and outside really starts with that record.
The original album title was Smooth Criminal. That was the original name of the album. And again, Michael called me up. He said, this is what he wants to do. And a couple days later, I got a call from Quincy Jones. Larry, he says, I got a problem with the album title. I go, what? It's actually kind of cool. It's edgy, it's kind of cool. He says, I understand what you're talking about, Larry, but I will not allow this album to be called Smooth Criminal. He just felt that the connotation was inappropriate at the time. And I said, well, let me call Walter and I'll get back to you.
That's a bit of a shame.
Very involved with this project. And Walter says, I don't care what you call it, just put it out.
This was the most published
So
music
it would have been Smooth Criminal, not Bad. That kind of makes sense, because in my eyes, I think Smooth Criminal is a better song than Bad. I think it is definitely a better song than Bad. I will be ranking all these at some point in the near future.
We were prepared for it
by
for
the
3
way.
days.
Oh, off the
We were
album.
shooting the video in the subway in New York. Every day after shooting, and you'd go, okay, let's do it. No, I'm tired. I got something to do. Next day, okay.
You
No,
really
I'm
did look
tired.
good.
Okay, the last day, Frank says, Mike,
Damn.
he's been sitting here for 3 days. You got to take this picture. Okay, Frank. 3 rolls of 12 shots later, he goes, that's enough. And this is what we came up with.
There was an album cover shot, and it was done in a very 30s style. It was a copy of a Vogue photograph of Gloria Swanson that had been shot back in the 30s. Wow. And they took a piece of lace and they stuck it in front of the camera, and they shot through the lace Michael's face. It was just a headshot. So it looked like that Michael was wearing a veil or a piece of lace on his face.
He did have a veil, and I said, I'm not putting on an album cover with a schmutter over his face.
He called me up and he went, that is not the album cover.
We wanted a tough album. We wanted to get all a tough image.
Wow, I'm quite interested in that. So it would have been that picture on the album cover. I think this was a better option, what they actually done, than that lace. I mean, it's a cool effect, but I think that they made the right choice.
No, because it's important that you keep trying to change, change up, And this is the one where I'd asked him to write all the tunes.
This room was built for Michael. Yeah, this Studio D in Westlake was built for Michael Jackson, and for specifically the Bad record. I was in this big room here. We had Phil and Gaines in the other room, E, I believe it was, doing all the synth parts. We had Jerry Hay and the other guys doing other arrangements in the other rooms. We had this whole building locked out.
Wow.
Locked out. Everybody's working on different tunes on the same record.
Well, the Bad song really sets up the entire album, because this is a song in which Michael's kind of addressing the huge backlash that had taken place since Thriller. The whole world has to answer right now. Who's bad?
Well,
who's bad?
It is quite different from anything I've ever recorded or I've ever written. It's a bold statement to say, but I mean it in all goodwill, so don't take it too seriously. It's a good modesty, of course. Yeah, I'm saying it's like a way of saying you're cool, you're all right, you're tough. I'm not saying I'm like criminally bad. Yeah, of course, that's how people would take it.
I love this interview, by the way. Brilliant interview.
It's a bold statement to make.
opening line is, your butt is mine, you know? I mean, that's street, you know, like, let's get it on, you know?
So I wanted to
Butt
do
is
a
mine,
duet with
yeah.
Prince and have the video with him coming to kick Michael's ass.
The rivalry between the two of them, between Prince and Michael, for real music lovers at that time and real music fans, that's a rivalry that is unmatched and will probably go unmatched for many, many years. Michael impacted dancers.
Nobody can touch him dancing. So I think, you know, when I try to dance, I try to, you know, not mimic him, but I try to, you know, not let him down in a way.
Prince impacted musicians.
Michael Jackson and Prince were the polarizing figures of the 80s. Are you a Michael fan or a Prince fan?
You can't do that.
I personally haven't listened to any Prince songs. Is it actually worth me looking into Prince at all? You have to let me know.
Why? Because I think that Michael and Prince came into our lives at a different point.
They're synonymous to me. They're equal.
Michael and Prince are our heroes. You know, they're our musical heroes. My annual Michael Jackson versus Prince party, that's something I've been doing for a while, really just to pay homage and tribute to those two artists.
I'm Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, Michael Jackson.
I met Michael once.
Cee Lo Green.
At, ironically enough, a Prince concert. I was performing with Prince in Vegas. After the show was over is when I met him backstage, and so I thought that they had been nemesis all these years, but it turns out, you know, Mike was, you know, pretty big fan of Prince as well.
So Michael said,
Jeez.
set up a meeting. I want Prince to come over. And the meeting took place at Havenhurst, 4641 Havenhurst. And Bob Cavallo went over with Prince and Frank.
They actually met, huh?
They met, and Michael's steady.
Wow.
And I recall, I wasn't there that night, but I remember I was told the next day it was not a happy meeting. Apparently, Prince brought over some sort of voodoo box, and Michael was convinced that Prince was trying to cast a spell on him.
If Quincy had gone to Prince and said, write a song for you and Michael to do, that song would have gotten recorded.
What? Wait. Prince went over and Michael swore, right, that he had like a voodoo box and that he was going to cast like a crazy voodoo spell on him. Oh my God, that is so awesome.